Okay. All right. So for this little lecture or whatever, or interactive lecture, because I've got a microphone set up for those of you who are in the room to see, I'm going to talk about what's called sound design. Okay. Sound design is not composition. It's basically, I'll give you the gist of it is it's sound effects or anything that's non-music sound in a film or video game. Okay. That can be dialogue. It can mean anything other than music. Okay. And sometimes you'll find that there's a fine line between the score and the sound design. Sometimes they're working together. Sometimes they step on each other's toes. So it's really important that the sound designer, that's the person who's in charge of all the non-music sound, that the sound designer has at least open communication with the composer, so that they're on the same page. Because sometimes a certain sound design event will support the music in a way or lead up to music in a way that's effective, or the music leads to a sound effect, right? So I think it's important that you all just get a little crash course in sound design. I've got a little PowerPoint here that I'll share. I'm just going to share my screen because there's too many things I've got going on here. I'm not going to even try to share one thing at a time. So I'm just going to share my overall screen. I've got a little PowerPoint for you here. I'm not even going to start the show because I know what happens. Sometimes when we start the PowerPoint in here, it just goes haywire, and then we can see it on this screen, but you can't see it at home, whatever. So one second here. Okay. So I'll just go through this little PowerPoint that I put together. So sound design and composition and kind of how they go together. I teach a class here at UWRF called Sound Design and Composition. It's for both music people, music majors, but also theater and film majors that we have here. Sort of an interdisciplinary course. So it's pretty cool. Okay, here we go. What is sound design? Sound design is how filmmakers flesh out the aural world of a film to enhance the mood, atmosphere, and or tone. Okay. It includes components, sound effects, mixing, Foley, sound design. I'll explain all these. And in the final and most important element needed to create an immersive audio experience for the audience. Okay, so it can be just as important as music. In fact, any film, play, musical, anything that you go to that's visual, just about. The two most important aspects of that presentation, two most important aspects, the two pillars of it are, I need to be able to see it, I need to be able to hear it, right? And I'll tell you so often that when I've worked with productions or just seen productions, some people, directors, productions, whatever, they tend to focus more on one or the other. And that's not cool. The best productions focus on both equally. So I've seen tons of student independent films that students have made and brought to me to check out the sound. And it'll be shot beautifully. They'll use great cameras, great lighting, and they'll color graded it. It looks fantastic. But then like the sound is off. The levels are low or distorted, or there's random sound effects, or sometimes there's where there was a sound effect last time that car door closed, now there's not. Stuff like that, inconsistencies with sound. The music is often just poorly chosen. So that's probably the most common one I see, is that people neglect sound. They neglect the music sometimes, but they more often neglect sound effects and sound design. So it's very important. You don't need to be a sound designer to understand this, though, and to be able to do it even. Professional sound designers, they're sitting there in this, what I'll call is what's called a Foley stage, and I'll explain that in a second. And they sit there and create world-class sound effects, right? It's pretty cool. Okay, so examples of a sound design. A lightsaber in Star Wars, right? And how did they make that? They used a combination of a film projector's like motor sound. They used a little bit of TV interference, and they mixed it with and they were basically in a waving mic in front of the speaker to create a swooshing sound, right? So they literally created that from scratch. Because, well, does anyone have a lightsaber they can show me that from that time that makes that sound? No, because it's not a real thing. It's fantasy, sci-fi. So they had to create a sound that worked well with that, using their imagination. And I think it worked well. I mean, we all know what that sound is, and it's kind of a cool sound. A velociraptor. So like in Jurassic Park, right? The dinosaur movies, sure, they're very popular still. They mixed a dolphin's shriek with a walrus's roar to create that sound. So this is what I'm talking about, is that you're mixing multiple sounds together to create the sound that you want. Now, do we truly know what a velociraptor sounds like? No. People have guessed based on creating, like sort of recreating the anatomy of a velociraptor, looking at the bone structure to figure out what it may sound like. But ultimately, we don't know what it sounds like. So they got creative with it and made a sound that, hey, it works for the movies. So, whatever. Remember, almost everything you see in a movie is a lie. Almost every aspect of it is a lie. Actors are lying. The lighting is a lie. They're not in that actual place. The sound is a lie. Everything's a lie. It's a manipulation. That's just what it is, but it's awesome and we love it. So even reality TV is a lie. So most of the time, scripted, all kinds of things. Saving Private Ryan. So the recording period of the artillery, they were recording like artillery from the time actually to maximize the authenticity of it. So this is a situation where the actual sound exists in this world, and they went and sampled it. They recorded it and sampled it. So there's many approaches to this to create sound designs, however you want to record it. Okay. So this is an important one. I think it's the 5, 4 or 5 sonic events that happen in a film or a video game. Okay, in any sort of visual media, when there's sound attached to it, there are 5 possible events. Not all of these always happen either. There may not be music sometimes, but these are 5 sonic events that can happen in a film. Number 1 is dialogue. Okay, speaking, talking, actors talking. Number 2, ambience. Anyone know what ambience is? Lucas, use your mic. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I got to be prepared for that. Audio settings. Hold on. And go.
Ambience is basically like all the background sounds that you don't hear, but create the atmosphere that surrounds and envelops the film. It puts you into the place. So like, say you're in a cave, you hear like the dripping of water. Like if you're outside near an ocean on a beach, you hear the waves, like tiny little bits of tiny little bits of like birds and stuff. Basically, everything that you don't like consciously hear, but is present.
That is a very good explanation. I would agree. It's basically like room noise. It's if there's an exterior shot, if they're filming outside, well, you expect to hear outside noises. If they're in a city, what do you expect to hear? Traffic, maybe people chattering as they walk by, honking of horns, construction. There's all kinds of things. If you're in nature, like say you're out in the country, well, you're probably going to hear birds, maybe a creek, wind. All of these things are combined to create what's called ambience, right? Yes. Carl, go ahead.
That fan that's sitting on that counter over there is a great example of ambient noise.
Exactly. Like I actually, when I go to sleep at night, I have a white noise machine in our bedroom, and I just it's amazing. It just I don't know, it just kind of covers up the dullness of silence. I don't like to sleep in total silence. I need sound. It's weird, but yeah, it's like creating a white noise in here. The HVAC system in a room, which is like the vents and the air conditioning and heating, those make noise. So if you're in a building, like in an office building, you expect to hear that. Maybe you hear the typing of, if you're in an office building, you hear the typing of keyboards. You hear, people putting down coffee mugs. You hear, just chatter, light chatter, right? They're not like a sporting event where they're yelling, so it's a different kind of chatter, right? It's a different kind of just ambiance. So let me see, I got the chat going on here. There's a lot of chat going on. Okay. Tell me when something important comes up on the chat, if it's a question, not just. So I don't have to keep checking back and forth. Okay, so ambience. Okay, the other one is sound effects. Okay, now when I say sound effects here, I'm not necessarily referring to ones that are recorded by people. These are sound effects you find online. sound effects that have been sampled, recorded already, and then they've been added to a film or whatever, right? Now, I'll actually bring your attention to a program that I use a lot. I bought one of these libraries. There's like, just like sample libraries, there's sound effects libraries that professionals use. And this one is Pro Sound Effects. They have dozens of libraries that are used by obviously EA, Netflix, all the big, media companies. And they're award-winning, and they're really expensive. But if you buy like their starter one or whatever, it's got like 5,000 sound effects. It's amazing. And I use them a lot because I realize I haven't really told you guys much about me and my background in all of this. And I will, I think, at some point here. But one thing I do often is I get work for theater companies writing music for them. I compose music for theater companies. They want music for their plays, right? They also hire me to do sound design often. And I've done it for films as well, sound design and music, of course. But I've done sound design for both film and theater, and they're looking for sound effects that are quality, professional sound effects that they can use in their productions. And I've done, I can't tell you how many times I've had to blend multiple sounds to create the sound I want, just like they did for the Velociraptor and the lightsaber. Yes, hold on one second. Hold on, I keep closing this window. Okay, go ahead, Henry.
Are there any movies or like theatrical things that you could like give us to check out so we could see your work?
Certainly. As for theatrical productions, I can show you the music. I can't really show you, I don't know if, some of them may have been filmed. I don't really know. Literally, I'm working for theater companies all across the country that I've never even seen. In fact, most of the ones I've done, I've never even seen the show. I read the script. That was another lecture series I was thinking about doing this week, if I can, from script to score is what I call it, where you're creating your sound cues, your music cues from the script alone without being able to see the movie. This is something that happens because oftentimes you don't get the actual locked picture until the very last minute. And then they give you maybe, in Hollywood, they give you maybe a month to get your music done, maybe less. You'll see billboards already up for advertising the video, right? So sometimes it helps as a composer to be able to get the script ahead of time at least, so you can be at least understanding what's happening in the story. And I'll tell you, it's super valuable to be able to read a script and get your musical ideas before you even put a note down. Make notes. I'll go through a script 2 or 3 times and make notes as I go in like a PDF. I'll like literally electronically print my notes in there. And like, okay, suspenseful music, maybe, pizzicato bass, lurking kind of thing. I'll put like adjectives and things to sort of describe it. And then I can start sort of drafting some ideas to get started. And then when I see the picture, hey, sometimes you get lucky and it's like, hey, this works. Sometimes it's like, nope, I'm not even close. Because the script what's in the script doesn't always make it to the picture too, okay? The locked picture is edited down. They cut stuff all the time, so you just never know. Okay, let me turn that speaker back up just in case. All right, so sound effects. Let me go back to my PowerPoint here. And yes, Henry, I'll share some stuff with you guys before the end of the week. Maybe in some of your one-on-ones at the end of the week too. But I'd like to share some of my work with you. So I'm not up here as just a fraud talking to y'all. Yeah, Lucas, hold on. What's that? Sure. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of libraries out there for sound generation. I personally like the challenge of creating them myself too, like literally recording them myself. And that leads me to the next one, which is called Foley. Okay. And Foley is also a sound effect situation. So that's why I separate the two: sound effects versus Foley. Sound effects are ones that you didn't necessarily generate yourself, that you found, whereas Foley is where you literally create them in a studio. Okay, and what they call Foley is short for a Foley stage. And if you've ever seen a Foley stage, do I have one here? I don't think I do. It's basically a square room. There's usually a lot of junk in there on shelves, like Like you could actually make a Foley out of your, like if your dad has like, or your parents have like a garage with like a bunch of tools and just random crap on shelves. That's actually an ideal place for Foley stage, because you need to just be able to grab anything to make the sound you want at any moment, right? And it'll just be a room where you can grab a whole bunch of stuff off shelves and literally record yourself making the sounds. Oftentimes you'll also have, on a real Foley stage, you'll have various floor surfaces. Okay, because one of the most common things you do with Foley is record footsteps in a film, right? And you need a variety of terrains to do it. So you'll see it'll be like little like 4x4, 4 feet by 4 feet square boxes, kind of like surfaces. One will be sand, one might be like gravel, one will be like hardwood floor, one will be carpet. You know, you'll get a variety of things. Snow sometimes. They usually don't actually use snow. They'll use sand as a replacement and give it a little more crunch with some other sound maybe. And then some Foley artists, and you can find them on Instagram, they show videos of themselves. They'll put on like, you'll see a dude in high heels, like walking on like the hardwood floor surface to recreate that sound. And what they do is they put it up on the screen, on a big screen in front of them. So they're watching the picture, and they have a nice high condenser mic, like a shotgun mic or a condenser mic, aimed at their feet, and their eyes are glued to the screen, and they're literally watching the timing of the footsteps as they record the steps. And they're like, oh, I missed that one. Let's go back. Okay, do that. And sometimes if you miss one, if you only miss like one, you can fix that in post, right? You can just literally cut it up in your DAW and then move it over to line it up with, you know, where it happens on the shot, which is, again, it's almost always going to be right on a frame. So having your frames in your DAW setup is going to help for sound design as well. Okay. So Foley is really cool. I mean, people actually go do gunshots, real gunshots. They'll use blanks most of the time, but to get the actual gunshot sounds that they want, gunshots are really common in all kinds of film and television and video games. So explosions, those are usually synthetically created. They're usually not real explosions, but sometimes people go out in the field and create it. And Foley also includes ambience, because people will take you know, a field recorder out wherever to gather the ambience themselves and record, right? It's a type of Foley. And then finally, the fifth, and to me just as important as any of the others, is music. Okay, so those are the 5 sonic events that occur in any visual media, really. Okay, so real quick here, like I said, almost everything you see on screen is never real. It's all a lie. Same with sound. It's manipulating you. It's manipulating your ears. Like that lightsaber sound, that's not a real sound, right? But when you see it and you put the sound with it, our minds are like, oh yeah, that works. That makes sense. That's probably what that sounds like, right? So sometimes it's a complete manipulation of your mind telling you that this is what this sounds like. If it's plausible based on what you're seeing and hearing, great. Sometimes it's not. Often it's not plausible. So I urge you to, when you're watching, like the next thing you watch, whatever you're doing right now watching, check for sound things that don't work, because I'll tell you, the vast majority of sound you hear has been recreated in post-production, whether it's Foley or sorry, I missed one back here. The dialogue. Yeah, I did say dialogue. Dialogue, which is also called, and I'll get to it in a second, ADR. And that's what we're going to do for the last couple minutes of this class is ADR. But yeah, everything, and a lot of times the dialogue, if it's not captured perfectly, the actor comes in post, they got the big screen in front of them, and they say they're watching, just like Foley, they're watching their mouths move and trying to match the energy. There's one where Hugh Jackman's doing Wolverine in ADR, and he's just like, he's getting himself all pumped because he wants to match the energy that's on the screen. You can't just walk in and record yourself going, hi, I'm Wolverine. You have to like match the action that's on the screen. So he like gets all like nuts. He works himself up like almost to a dangerous point. You're just like, oh man, this is like scary. And he's just like, he's running around, walking around the room, and he gets all like mad. And then he walks up to the mic and he says his lines. And you're just like, wow, it's impressive. You can find a clip of that out there somewhere, I'm sure. But that's an important thing, is when you're doing that, just like with any sound effect, it has to match the screen. It has to match the energy. It has to match the physical location, whether it's outdoors or indoors. It has to be plausible. Okay, that's what the professionals think about. They think about those things to make the best manipulation situation. Okay. So when it's done thoughtfully, sound design for film can enhance the visual storytelling, can make it better. It can give it life, authenticity, and dimension that otherwise a flat moving picture might not have. Okay, there's a video on here. I'm not going to play right now because it's too long, but he talks about different ways to create sounds. He said he tests your mind. He says which one of these is he gives you 2 sounds samples. He says which one of these is rain, and which one of these is bacon sizzling on a stove. And it ends up they're both bacon on the stove. He tricks you. And you're just like, wow, because they both sound like rain. It's amazing. He made rain, like a rainstorm, like a decent, heavy rain-ish, out of recording him a bacon on a stove frying on a pan. So you got to get creative, right? Sound designers are not just like, oh, okay, I need a gunshot, I'll shoot a gun. No, they get really creative with it, inventive. So what does a sound designer do? They're in charge of the film sound design, as I said. They're in charge of all non-music sound, okay? The role of the sound designer can be all-encompassing depending on the size of the production. They often have a team. Rarely is there just one person in charge of all this. They often have a team of not just the designer, but then they'll have like audio engineers, mixers, recordists. So, and I'll tell you, there's actually a lot of work out there for sound design, first of all. Now, I want to talk real quick about ADR, okay? ADR, you'll hear that term maybe if you're ever around film people. ADR is called automated dialogue replacement. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It means you're replacing the dialogue that's on the screen because it didn't record well, right? So you're replacing it with better recorded dialogue. And it can be really fun. It can also be completely ridiculous and not work at all. I notice it almost very often. If there's been some really famous movies that have been had a really poor ADR. A lot of times, if an actor's head is turned, you can't see their mouth. You can get away with however you want to do the ADR. Just match the energy, right? You don't have to sync up the lips with your voice. If their head's turned, no problem. Likely if their head's turned, they turned away from the boom mic anyways, so you're going to do ADR regardless. So it works out pretty well. It's just very tedious, okay? So what I wanted to do is just kind of practice real quick, okay? Do a little practice ADR session. So you guys can kind of see how they do it. Now, what they do, and for those of you online who weren't here, they literally set up in a room with a big projector screen like the one we have here. Sometimes it'll actually be in a sound stage though, not a classroom. It'll be in a sound stage. They'll have a large condenser microphone. You can see this over here. You can see there's a large condenser diaphragm microphone. And condenser mics are crucial because they're more sensitive. And then you see that little circular thing in front of it, that's called a pop filter. And what that does, a pop filter reduces what's called plosives. And a plosive is when someone's talking to your or like the harsh little transient sounds that happen whenever you say words, right? Puzz are the worst because sometimes like spit will come across or like, so puzz and tuzz and buzz, anything with a hard consonant at the beginning of a word. So what that does is it filters it, it reduces it greatly. I'm sure you've all heard recordings at times of people just speaking in public, like on an SM58 microphone, pretty much what Henry has there. And you hear tons of that, like whatever they're saying. Today in the cafeteria, we'll be performing blah, 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 blah. You just hear this nasty plosive mess. And it's really unsettling. So you don't hear that in film because they use these situations, just in recording in general. Use a pop filter. Okay, and so what we're gonna do, I thought I have a Reaper session here. I'm gonna open up. And in this Reaper session, I've put a scene from the movie Back to the Future. If you've, some of you have seen this movie. If you haven't, your life is lacking greatly and you need to see it. It's incomplete. Your life is incomplete if you haven't seen it. It's kind of timeless too. You know, I mean, I think Alan Silvestri did the score for it. Fantastic. He also did Endgame. And so it's one of my favorite scores actually, is Back to the Future, just because it's so much nostalgia with it too, I think. It's such a fun movie. And actually the whole trilogy I think is really good too. And now there's a musical on Broadway, by the way. Alan Silvestri did the music for it too. Crazy. So there's a scene where the bully Biff they're in the lunchroom at the school because Marty has gone back in time. He's trying to get his parents to get together, right? Because he fears that they will not end up together. And that means he won't be born, right? So he's trying to save his future, his life, by getting his parents to fall in love. Well, his dad's just a big nerd, just a, you know, like, and not like today's nerd. 1950s nerd was looked down upon a little bit more, right? They were just not cool. And his mom, who's like the pretty girl, you know, who the bully likes and everything like that. And so the bully's hitting on her and he's like roughhousing. He's just not a good dude. And then Marty, who's the main character, Michael J. Fox, tries to like intervene and they have a little confrontation. So there's a scene here. Let's go in here, as you can see on the video. Try to make this a little bit bigger. So this is Marty here on the left, and on the right is his dad. And let's just listen to a little bit of it here. Here's right before the confrontation. I'll lead up into it a little bit more so you can kind of get some context. Hold on, I gotta turn up my speakers so the people in the room can hear too. Okay.
She told me to tell you that she wants you to ask her the enchantment under the sea dance. Really? Oh, yeah. All you gotta do is go over there and ask her. What, right here, right now in the cafeteria? What if she said no? I don't know if I could take that kind of a rejection. Besides, I think she'd rather go with somebody else. Yeah. What? You know you want it. You know you want me to give it to you. Such a filthy mouth. I'm not that kind of girl. Oh, maybe you are, you just don't know. That young meat hooks off of me. You heard it. She said, get your meat hooks. Please. So to you, butthead. You know, you've been beaten, bro. Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Of course, he screws up that joke. It's make like a tree and leave, like leave, right? But he says make like a tree and get out of here. He always screws it up. It's great. It's shtick. It's fun. So I want to re-record Biff's line there. I want to re-record Biff. So he says, since you're new here, I'm going to cut you some slack today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? Okay, that's the line, right? Let's take a look at it again when he confronts him. It's right here. Okay, so.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Okay, that's what I want to record. So I'm gonna split that here. I'm gonna split it here. I'm just gonna delete all this stuff because we don't need it for now, for just what we're doing. Okay, let's go back here. Here it is, the little clip.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Okay,
Since you're
one
new
more
here,
time.
I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Okay. Who wants to be my guinea pig in the room? Lucas? Carl? Unfortunately, the people online can't do it because there's going to be a lag
Nor.
between the recording software and the and Zoom. That's the one issue that we deal with when you're doing online. In fact, you know why you can't have music lessons online and play something at the same time? Because there's like a two millisecond lag, and that actually technology is not really there yet. There's some people who can like get into, if you're into the firewall and you like, have a really just crazy awesome connection, you can get it close. But in general, the technology just does not exist yet, where we can Zoom conference call and play something musically or whatever at the exact same time. There will always be a delay. Yeah, anyone tried that before? It's obnoxious. If you teach lessons, you have to go back and forth all the time. You can't play together. Yeah, Lucas. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, if you want to be perfectly precise though, it's just not possible at this point. Hopefully they get that figured out at some point, because that would be amazing, right? But it's not a thing yet. So therefore, I think Carl, do you want to do one? Okay, so just so y'all can know, I'll try to make it so everyone in the class, can someone put their computer on Carl so they can see this, they can watch it? Yeah, thank you. I want to make sure we have video on him recording it. So can you come to the side, like, so we can see like a profile, or like, actually put it right here, so we can kind of get this like angled shot. Because they can see on the screen, on my screen, what the video is doing. Okay, so now let's get a level first. Always get your levels. Now, first of all, you're a little bit taller, so we can move the mic to you. Step in a little bit. And how usually I do is like a fist between the pop filter and your mouth. There you go. Stay right there. Now that's where you don't have to keep the fist up, yeah, but that's about the distance, right? Okay, we got to turn the fans off in here too. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Because otherwise it would be super muffled, even with the pop filter too. Then it's just like. Okay, so you're all set up. So first I want to get a level. Can you try saying the line once? So since you're new here. Perfect. Okay, good level. And so let's just do a practice run. Okay, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna give you a little bit of lead-in time here. I'll give you, let's see here. I'll give you 2 measures before it starts recording. Okay, but I'm not gonna record yet. Okay, so, but watch the cursor. You see the cursor? And you see where the sound events start? And you'll see the movie as well. I'll actually expand this just a little bit so you can get a little bit of this context. Okay, here we go. Practice. Hold on, let me turn off we don't need a metronome. Or we don't need the, okay, here we go.
I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Okay, let's do one more. Yeah, so it helps to both watch the movie. It also helps to watch the wavelengths. Yeah. I watch the wavelengths more than I watch the movie, because you can see where the sound events start, but you also want to see his lips a little bit too. But we can always nudge things too. Okay, so let's try. Let's just, again, this is practice. Okay, here we go.
I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
See, you were watching the wavelengths that time and you nailed it. Okay, ready to record? Here we go. Quiet on the set. This is what they say. Action. Hold on. Hold on, I gotta turn the sound off. I gotta turn the sound off from the movie, right? Because we don't want to hear that. We just want to see it. Okay, here we go again. You see a couple bars of.
don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Cut. Okay. So we'll save that one for a second. Let's hear it back. Let's watch it.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Okay. So obviously there's some sync things, right? We didn't line up perfectly in some spots, like this one's late, right? So two things you could do. One, you have two options at this point. Can I fix this in post? Can I cut up this thing? And like, so if I were to cut it, like say this one's early, right? I could splice this one, shorten this a little bit because it's just nothing, and move this to sort of line up with where this starts, right? And get it sort of like almost perfect. See, like maybe like there or so, right? Pretty close. Now, if I watch this once.
So why don't you make like a tree?
That's pretty lined up now. So you can fix it in post. Now, this can get really tedious if a lot of them are not synced, right? So I recommend just take two, okay? Seriously, the takes will go much faster if you just have the actor do it again. Have them do the work, not you. It's easy enough to just press record, you know, and then delete the last one. Okay, here we go. Okay, one more. Yeah, here. Okay, here's just practice. Sorry.
I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
And that last line is a little bit later than you think it's going to come. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? He almost takes a breath. Okay, let's try that. Here we go. We're recording.
I'm gonna cut you a break.
Sorry. Forgot to turn the volume off. Okay, one more time. Here we go.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today.
Cut. Let's do it again. And this is the workflow. We're going fast, right? We're moving. Okay, here we go. Late. Again. Here we go.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Okay. I cut it off a little early. Sorry. You want to leave a little bit of tail, so you have a little bit of the room ambience of the resonance of the voice, even, right? Okay, let's hear it back.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Pretty close. Okay, let's try another. Let's try someone else.
But it's your rendition of it. I'm ready.
Okay. Can I get your level first?
Yeah.
So say the line. Since you're new here.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get
Get out.
out of here?
Okay. All right, good. I got a level. Let's do a practice one. Okay, here we go. Practice.
I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
That's pretty good syncing. Let's try it. Here we go. Ready? Recording. Quiet on the set. Action.
Since you're new here.
Cut. Let's do it again.
It was way too early.
I'm going to give you a little more here so you can watch the video a little bit and kind of get into it. There we go. And
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. Okay, I forgot my line.
so why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Let him hear you.
Okay, yeah, here.
I'm gonna-
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. Why don't you make like a tree
And
and get out of here?
Okay.
So why don't you make like a tree?
And then there's a breath there.
Yeah. So why don't you make like a tree?
And get out of here. Yeah, there you go. Okay, let's try it. And
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? Didn't really know the last one.
cut.
Yeah. That was great.
Let's just watch it once.
It's,
That was not bad, dude.
yeah, but like the lips weren't right. Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break
Oh.
today.
Oh.
So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Not bad. Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, you want to do one more? Okay, sure. I'll delete that one. Should I keep that one or delete it? Yeah. Yeah, we're doing a okay. And here we go. Here we go. Quiet on the set. Here we go. Oops, hold on. I should probably arm this track. Okay. Here we go. Quiet on the set.
Since you're new here,
Oh, shh. My bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. I try not to. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Same thing.
I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? Last thing is still early.
Let's try it. Let's hear it.
Since you're new here,
Oh, hold
I'm
on.
gonna cut you a break.
Let's go back a little bit. Here we go.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
So that'd be an easy fix. This is one where I'd probably go, I would just nudge it. No,
And get out of here.
now look at it. I literally moved it one frame or like a few frames over. Watch.
And get out of here.
Perfect. We should go to lunch, but we can do some of this maybe this afternoon or something too. Okay. Isn't that sweet? It's very fulfilling to be, it's powerful almost.
Always wanted to try it because I'm really good at matching people's inflection. The way that they speak.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Go to lunch.